All right. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So today is the beginning of the second phase of this program, phase 2 of the mentorship program. So this will be a little bit different to a certain degree, meaning we'll be talking a little bit more about topics that are more focused on the following, on practice. You want to take what we've talked about in theory and turn into practice. Meaning, the concepts that I shared, and every inshallah setting, I'll share the summary of the 7 lessons or the 7 topics that I went through initially. I'll share them every time so that you have something to always refer to. Now, with that knowledge, must be a life practice that is strong and clear. We all have to have that. And how do you make sure that you have that strong practical aspect of your life? Which is what we want to focus on a little bit during this phase 2 part of the program. Taking the theory, putting it into practice. Not in a clinical way, where here's the first lesson and here's the practice of the first one, and the second lesson, here's the thing. But more talking about practice in general, and referring back to a lot of the concepts and teachings that we went through throughout the first phase. And inshallah, Muhammad will be kind of spearheading this piece. I'll be there and I'll interject, inshallah, to kind of point out certain things that Islamically you need to remember, or where the Islamic aspect of it all comes in. And we'll kind of tag team this whole process, inshallah. So the practice modules that we're going to go through are the 5 following things. We're going to talk about productivity. We're going to talk about mental strength. We're going to talk about physical wellness. We're going to talk about inner peace. And we're going to talk about service. These are the 5 practice modules. And it's in Arabic, each one has a name. And and the words are all very important ones Islamically. So we're going to talk about al-amal. We're going to talk about al-quwwa, al-afiyah, al-tuma'nina, and al-ubudiyya. These are all concepts that came up multiple times throughout the initial phase, or the first phase of the program. We're going to take each one under it is 4 to 5 sessions or mini modules. So under mental strength and physical wellness, inner peace, and service. I think the other one is missing. I don't know why it's missing, but for some reason it's not there. But each one has under it a number of topics that we will share with you per session. We'll talk about how maybe to achieve some of these things. A lot of this is going to, again, be practical. The point here is going to be for us to move from the theory to actual practice, and we all try to figure out where we are failing, what's not working, how we can improve that, and how, inshallah, we can improve ourselves. So today we're going to be talking about productivity, and we're going to go through, these are the 5, I think there's a 5th one, isn't there? For some reason it's not coming up, or is it 4? Okay, so these are the 4 modules. Today we're going to start with number 1. We're going to go through forming habits, inshallah, within the module of productivity. I'm going to start by, before we maybe do this, I'll share this piece here, and then I'll kind of hand it over to you to continue, inshallah ta'ala. So when we talk about forming habits, just the Islamic background of it is very simple. It's very simple and it's very real, and this is something that I teach a lot when I do tazkiyah sessions with people, and we talk about this. It's one of the cornerstones of any form of tazkiyah if you want to be able to perform tazkiyah properly, which is one of the basic concepts, so the fundamental building bricks that we went through. Then you have to learn how to build habits. You have to learn how to do takhliya and tahliya. You have to get rid of certain bad habits and replace them with ones that work. And this is based and this is basically rooted in the Prophet ﷺ's teaching. And there's no hadith. سددوا وقاربوا واعلموا أن لن يدخل أحدكم عمله الجنة وأن أحب الأعمال إلى الله أدومها أو ما دام وإن قل. That last speaks there that the most beloved actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the ones that last, are consistent, even if they're very small. Whatever is consistent, whatever you do all the time, even if it's very small and it's very simple, that is the most beloved. These are the most beloved actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He loves when you commit yourself to something beyond what He already asked you to commit yourself to. So obviously, that's why He loves the fara'id the most, because those are the things you commit yourself to right off the bat. You commit yourself to salawat and siyam, and you do those things. But if you take on yourself to commit yourself to something more with the intention, again, this is not going into the realm of making up or inventing new acts of worship, but you commit yourself to good deeds in a way where you're holding yourself to it. That's something he loves, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ did in his life and taught. So that's the basis of this. So inshallah, Muhammad's going to go through the how and the what and all the details of how to get through this. Inshallah, I'll hand it over to him so that, because we don't have a lot of time, we want to get through the whole module, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. طيب, Jazakumullah khair for coming. And as Sheikh Adnan mentioned, what we're trying to do here, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that we're really, really obsessed about trying to change behavior. Ever since this whole project came about, when we didn't even have a center, and we'd get together in his garage or wherever we got together, the question that kept on coming up is it possible to change behavior? Is it practical to get people from point A to point B? And how do you go about doing that? And the way we measure our success in this center is not just by the audience that come in and how full the masjid is. It's great to see a masjid that is full, and it's great to have halaqat that are constantly and consistently being run and well attended. The proof, however, are those people moving closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why we're giving you phase 2. And phase 2 is trying to give you practical tools that will help you make that change. How do I turn my life around? Some of us know how to do that. Most of us don't know how to do that. And I'm in that camp myself. And only through practice and through sharing tools do we ever have a hope of maybe short-circuiting the process. Instead of discovering it 20 years later after having tried so many things, hopefully if we share with you some of the ideas that have scientifically been proven to work, and by the way, that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us would work, when we bring those two together, do we have a shot at least trying it and seeing if it'll work in our life. So productivity is the first module, and the module consists of at least 4 sessions. And the first session is how do you build habits? The second one is willpower. Where does that play into effect? And after that, we want to look at procrastination, because that's the negative thing that could destroy us once you've got your habit in mind and realizing that, okay, I need willpower, we will procrastinate. And that's completely fine, that's completely normal, and there's ways to get around that. And lastly, how do I improve my productivity by using habits, willpower, and the fact that I know that I'm going to procrastinate. So what I'd like you to do is to scan this right now. Take a few quick seconds. If you can't scan it, you can go to menti.com and put this code in. Hopefully it will work, and Ali will tell me if it will or won't. And very, very quickly, the question that we'll ask you is, what does habit formation mean to you? Just answer it whichever way you want to answer. And Ali can maybe skip to the slides so we can see the answers that you guys are coming up with. So what does personal development specifically mean to you? I don't know if answers will come in, or are they, do we need to do anything to make them show? Do you want to hit C? Hit C so it opens it up. Click on C. It's open now. $8699. But it's not showing up. It's okay if it's not showing up. We'll. Maybe click on the first line. Okay, we don't need to. And present. Oh, there we go. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you, guys. That's it? Come on. Only 3 people answered. Okay, here's the code. We want to try this code again. 497086. 999. There we go. Now it's coming through. Perfect. So personal development, what does it mean to you? So we have practice, personal growth, accomplishment, success, consistency, satisfaction, personal care, final form, gaining wisdom. Okay. Consistency, improvement, success, excellent. All good. But nobody defined it in an Islamic manner. I find that interesting. Okay. Tayyib, can we pause for a second? And I want you guys to think, if we can go back to the presentation, please. I want you guys to think about habit formation in two parts. One is at-tahliya wa tazkiya, as Sheikh Adnan mentioned. This concept of removing bad habits and installing good ones. So we actually start with breaking bad habits first, because one of the best ways to improve is to stop doing the things that are actually destroying us. So for example, you want to improve your health. Yes, you can eat lots of broccoli. That's great. That's wonderful. But you're going to have to eat lots of broccoli for a very, very long time before it has an impact on you. However, stopping smoking is something that can right away actually improve things in your life. Likewise, there isn't a plant that you can eat out there that will magically transform you into a person that's amazing. However, there's a whole lot of plants that once you eat, you're going to potentially poison yourself and die. So the idea of keeping both together, as we're talking about building habits, you can think about it in the negative sense too. We're going to talk through a few tools that you guys can use. You can also ask yourself, how can I use this tool, not to necessarily install something, but also remove it. Tayyib, who's this person? Not Socrates, but good guess. Who said Socrates? Okay, good guess. Who else? Plato, it's not Plato. Aristotle, very good. Aristotle, that's Aristotle. Why is he up here? Why am I putting him up here? So two things. One, I'll tell you what he said, and he's one of the earlier ones, at least quoted, to give us a quote that our traditions build on, and what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us. Obviously, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't study Aristotle, but it's the same concept. And the second point is to recognize that al-hikmatu dallatul mu'min, as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, that knowledge is the lost property of a mu'min. Wherever he finds this knowledge, he is the most deserving of that knowledge. What does that mean? That means we get our knowledge. In our tradition, we've been taught to get our knowledge from whoever happens to have that knowledge. And rightly or wrongly, now, unfortunately, as a Muslim ummah, we haven't been paying a lot of attention to these matters. Although, when you go back to our tradition, you see that it's actually part of this deen. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nothing that we're going to talk about right now is not something that we can back up with a hadith or an ayah or a concept from the deen. It's all from our deen. But unfortunately, our ummah has lost its track over the last few hundred years. And who's been speaking about these topics? Scientists that happen to be not necessarily grounded in Islamic knowledge. So we're going to give you both sides. What the science has been telling us, what other traditions have been telling us, as well as what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been teaching us. So Aristotle is the first person who said, excellence is we are what we repeatedly do. I love this comment. We are what we repeatedly do. So do you want to know who you are? Just look at all the things that you do throughout your life or throughout your day. And that's the person who you are. So you don't need to worry about how do people see me and how do I look to other people and how would they describe me. You kind of know that because it's what you repeatedly do. And he went off and said, excellence is not an act, it's a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not something you do once, it's something that you do habitually. And he actually didn't use the word excellence. Anybody know what he used for this word? He used arete. What does arate mean? It's the Greek word that means you do the best that you can in the moment that you have. So you're sitting right now listening. There's an excellent way of listening, and there's a mediocre way of listening, and there's a pretty poor way of listening. What's a poor way of listening? I'm sitting there checking my cell phone, my Instagram, and so on and so forth. What's an okay way of listening? Just sitting there and kind of daydreaming once in a while. What's an excellent way of listening? When all my soul force, my attention, my connection is with what is being presented to me. Same thing, there's a way for me to be speaking right now. There's a way for us to be praying. There's a way for us to deal with other people, excellence, mediocre, or poor. And the more you can do excellent things, the more you become an excellent person. What did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam use for the word arate? He taught us a word that means arate. He didn't use that word, of course. What word did he sallallahu alaihi wasallam use? Ihsan. Thank you very much. So excellence, obviously you guys attended the class with Sheikh Adnan, so you know that word and it came up a number of times. Ihsan is when I do the best I can in this moment. We try to think that an excellent life comes through magnificent action, but it's rarely the case. A magnificent life is nothing more than the mundane being done over and over and over and over in an excellent way. Then you become an amazing human being. Certainly, that's how the Sahaba were. The Sahaba didn't do just one act of greatness and all of a sudden they were told, you're going to be one of the 10 who has Jannah as their destiny. They kept on showing up day in and day out. And they did that through habitual actions. And what the scholars have been telling us is smart people take their habits, take everything that they do regularly and turn it into ibadah. So your habits become your ibadah. طيب. So I want you to go to Menti again and answer two questions. The first question is I want you to think of a habit that you can create just for yourself. What habit can you create or you want to create? This is anonymous, so we won't know what the answer is. We'll keep this up for a second. That way people can take the code. Actually, if we can go back for a second, please, Ali. Okay, if you go back to the same Menti, it's the same one. Just go back to it and answer the next question. What habit would you like to install in your life? It can be Islamic, it can be non-Islamic, it could be losing weight, it could be fighting less with my siblings, it could be running a marathon, whatever you want to create. I'd love to hear, we'd love to see what you've got to share with us. Is it good? I see no results, but that's fine. Sleep early. Okay. Sleep early. Just one result. Does it take time? There it is. Reading Quran daily, working out, exercising. ABC. I don't know what ABC means, but that's cool. Zikr. Sleep early, practicing hayat. Nice. Working out. When the word's in the center, does that mean it's mentioned a number of times or not necessarily? Okay. Okay. Yeah, we've got 18 responses. Oh, I don't know why he keeps doing that. Okay. 25, 26, 27. So, that's good. That's good. Thank you very much. Sleeping early, working out, exercise. It seems to be those are the three main ones. There's some reading Quran daily, lowering my gaze, eating healthy, like that. Reading 15 minutes every day. Perfect. Okay, can you go to the next question? And the next question is, what would you rather have? If you had the opportunity to take $2.5 million from me today, I give you $2.5 million. Sarah is smiling because she knows this will never happen because I don't have $2.5 million. And if I did, I don't know if I'd give it to you, but with all due respect, maybe half. I'll give you half and keep half. So would you rather have $2.5 million today or 1 penny. 2.5 million or 1 penny. However, that 1 penny has something special to it. Every single day, it doubles. Every single day, it doubles. Now, I'm time boxing it to a month. So I either give you 2.5 million today or a penny that doubles for a month. Which one would you rather have? Option 1 or option 2? Okay. Seems to be 50-50 to me, option 1 or option 2. People are doing the math and compounding. Okay, so who said option 1? And who would like to share with us? Noor, option 1. You said option 1. Do you want to say why? No? Okay, go ahead. I don't know how many investments would double your 2.5 million in a day, but maybe you could, but you could lose it if it's that much risky. So you would rather have 2.5 million because you think you can continue to grow it. Okay. Anybody else said option 1? Come now. Option 2. So Ahmed, you said option 1. Why? What if you die? Okay, interesting. Are you planning on not being here in a month? But khair, inshallah. La al-umr kullu. Yes. You don't know if you have tomorrow. Okay. So the question would be, if you think you don't have tomorrow, what would you do with $2.5 million today? Because then you'd be excited to, or incentivized to spend it all. Who said option 2? Who would rather have the penny? Akram. More. It's more. How is it more? How 4 times? How? Yeah, 1 cent every day doubling for a month. How is that more? Sorry? Okay, somebody has to teach Khalid compounding, but that's fine. Akram, why is it more? 10 million, you're kind of correct. If it was February, you'd be incorrect. You'd rather have the 2.5 million because you only had 28 days. And if you have, it's only when it gets to 30 and 31 does it make a difference. How much do you end up with? Not at 28, at 29. So how much would you have after 31 days of a penny? $10 million. So 1 penny doubling every single day gets us to 10 point whatever. Now you may say, come on, you could go do the math at home and you'll realize this is the case. Your life is that penny. If we can go back to the presentation, your life can be that penny. That means if you're able to install something and keep it as your new base and build from that point on, your life will be completely different within a short period of time. The problem is, and I'm number one guilty, is you install something and it's amazing, it feels great, and then you fall back to steady state. Then you install something else and you feel great, then you drop back. So what are we trying to tell you now? We're trying to hold on to the fact that it's a lot easier to install something super small but keep it for the rest of your life. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this is the best action for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the thing that you keep consistently is the most favored action. Why? I can take all my wealth and donate it fi sabilillah tomorrow. Isn't that a whole lot better than if I donate every morning $1? No, it's not a whole lot better if you donate once instead of every day. I don't make up the rules. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. Because when you're making that action of donating $1 for the rest of your life, it's a constant commitment to who you are versus spur of the moment, I feel great, I came, listened to Sheikh Adnan, and I want to change my whole life. Okay, I acted this thing, I came up, I did qiyam all night, and then never again. You guys all know this. We all know this. None of this is new. We're trying to just stress the point that we have to act. So throughout today, your number one responsibility is, what's the one thing I'm going to start that I'm not doing today? Not things that I'm doing that I'm going to do better. Not, I'm going to have khushu' on my salah. Great. You want to have khushu' on salah? Wonderful. Please come and talk to me and teach me how you're going to do that, because I'd like to have that too. But what is this thing that I can install, that I can truly measure and say, did I do this today or did I not do this? You start with your mental description. What mental description do you have of yourself? I'll give you an example. I never thought of myself as an athlete. The guys make fun of me because I still don't know whose game, whose team, who's playing. Are the Raptors, are they a hockey team or a baseball team? No, they're neither. They're a basketball team. I know that one. But if you tell me the Lakers or what have you, I never grew up watching sports. I never grew up playing sports. And unfortunately, that had a detrimental effect on my health. I was that smart engineer that had a big belly and would sit there and would code away their life, and health would suffer, and my sleep suffered, and I couldn't play with my kids and so on and so forth, until one day I said, this has got to stop. Like, I'm not on a good trajectory here. And this is way back in 2016, where I said, I need to change my own mental image of myself. How do I see myself? I'm going to see myself as an athlete. And I laughed at myself when I said that, because I'm not an athlete. I'm lying to myself. I don't even know how to play a lot of sports out there. But I said, I love swimming. I do. I did. I loved swimming. I still do love swimming. And I would swim once in a while whenever you have the time. It's really, really hard to swim versus putting on your shoes and going out for a run. It's easier to go out for a run. You don't need a swimming pool and go and change and drive and so on and so forth. But that's the one thing that I really love doing. So I started to think or pretend that I'm an athlete. Pretend it, fake it till you make it. Pretend you're an athlete and see what happens. But with that pretending, things started to fall in place. How does an athlete dress? Okay, go dress like an athlete. How does an athlete eat? Go eat like an athlete. When does an athlete go to sleep? Go to sleep at the same time that an athlete would go to sleep. And you'd realize that then the habits that you're putting in place are just reinforcing that mental image that you have of yourself. So for those who want to exercise, that came up, exercise and sleep, working out. You guys said that's the most important thing for you. Okay, so a person who exercises on a regular basis, guess what? That would be called an athlete, potentially. How do they look like? How do they behave? Where do they hang out? What are they doing at 10 o'clock at night? What do you think an athlete would do? Would they be sitting there and scrolling through Instagram for an hour? If you think that's what they do, great, you do that, because that's what's going to get you to be an athlete. But if you say, no, probably that's not what they're doing, they're probably sleeping early, so they wake up early so they can go and train. Okay, nobody's telling you what to do. You're telling yourself, then maybe I should be doing that, if that's the mental description of myself that I want to adopt. This is the who. You don't start with the what should I be doing. You start with the who do I want to become. And there's nothing that you can't become. We need to understand this. There is absolutely nothing that you are unable to become. It's your decision whether you want to do it or not. We live a life of, I can't do this, I can't do this, I don't have enough money, I'm not white, I don't look like that, I don't feel like that. And you tell yourself all this nonsense that keeps crippling you. You're crippling yourself versus saying, absolutely, I can become that. Will it be hard? It'll absolutely be hard. To memorize the Quran is not an easy endeavor. You don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to memorize it and in a week you're done. It's not like that. It's a lifelong commitment. But if you want to be like that, you can. It's a matter of, do you make that decision or not? طيب. Next thing is the keystone. What is a keystone? That's a keystone. Why is that special? So when you have a bridge and it's an arch. It's the stone that holds everything together. And what happens when you remove this stone? Everything falls down. Thank you, Noor. It's what keeps the entire structure together. So, when we say keystone habit, it's the single most important habit right now for your life. You can do many things. There's many, many things that we all could be doing. We could be memorizing. We could be running. We could be sleeping early. We could start a business. We could call everybody we know every single day and have amazing connections. All of that is beautiful. But what is important to you? What is the one thing that you know, if you do, it'll have so much ramifications on the rest of your life? One example is movement. That is for me. I'll share mine. And Sheikh Adnan said you should share one because I think people will connect with that. Okay, mine is movement. When I swim, I have that day that I go and do my swimming, I'm on top of the world. You may say, that's crazy. Well, I don't know why it's that way. But subhanAllah, there's a big difference when I happen to swim that day and when I don't. Why? Because I move, I get stuff out, I have a very stressful job, and subhanAllah, you just feel on top of the world. Excellent. So it has ramifications to everything else. Guess what I do when I walk in at home after having swum? I'm so much nicer to my family. My kids are going to be dumping stuff on the couch that we just bought. I don't get as angry as quickly. I still get angry and smack them. No, I want to smack them. I don't smack them. But at least I'm more patient. Again, why? Because I feel great. Why do I feel great? Because I did the thing that is most important to me. Is swimming going to matter to anybody in this room? Probably not. And it shouldn't. And it doesn't. And it's fine. Maybe to Noor, she put her hand up. But the question is, what is your keystone habit? What is the thing that when you do that day, it just makes the day that much better? You know you have a much better day when you do that thing. It could be, I pick up the phone, talk to my mom for 10 minutes because I feel amazing every time I do that, or to a friend, or when I eat a certain food. Perfect. Just recognize it and do more of that. So it has the deepest impact and ripple effect. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a few seconds after I show the next slide for us to get in groups and start talking about this. The idea of what do people think the number one kind of needle mover habit is for them. And I will caution you that we don't need perfection here. You have to come up with it. Nobody can tell you this. It's idiosyncratic to you. But recognize that you're not going to find it on the first pass through. You're going to sit there, think about it, and hear other people talk about it. And then you're going to identify and say, you know what, it's going to sleep early. And then 6 days later or 6 weeks later, you realize, no, actually, it's not going to sleep early because I've experimented with that, and it's not a needle mover thing for me. It's actually eating healthy. When I eat healthy, I have a great day. And then maybe you realize, no, it's not all about eating. It's actually about potentially picking up the Quran and doing your memorization for that day. I'm making this up, of course, because you guys are going to decide it. But you don't have to get it on the first pass. You have to think about this. You don't have to do anything. But I would encourage you, to the extent that you feel inspired to do so, is think about this. You want to change behavior, you're going to have to do that. We can't come to you at home, knock on your door and say, hey, did you do your habit? It has to come from internal. So for it to come from your internal, you need to give it a little bit of time to think about it. I know there's a question that I'll get to in a second, but here's something that I'll leave you with as we do our exercise. Think about what is most impactful for you in your life. What are you ready to commit to 100%? And what are you excited and passionate about? Where those three things intersect, that's usually a sign that this is something for you to focus on and shine the light of attention. So what is most impactful in my life? What am I willing to be 100% committed to? And what am I most excited about? So for my swimming, as an example, and Asma, I know she walked in here, so I can't really say too many things, But I have to give it to her because she allows me to be 100% committed to my swimming. It's because of her, and she knows how important it is to me to get my swimming in. I could argue that she's being selfish because she knows I'm not a nice guy when I don't swim. So she wants me to be a nice guy. So she allows me to go ahead and go do your swimming, and I'll take the kids for an hour or what have you while you do that. So I can build 100% commitment. What can you build 100% commitment on? What gets you most passionate, and what will move the needle for you? Those three things, when they come together, that's usually a good sign for you to focus on. Before we go to the group discussion, Sister Humira had a question. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, no, no. Mm. Okay, so if I'm beautiful questions, both of them. If I may ask you, when you say that's what I should be doing, and I hate that word, forgive me, I use it all the time, and we should stop shoulding on ourselves. It's something that whenever we should, it's somebody telling us, oh, you should do this. And I know it's me telling myself, but it's not an empowering type of word. And Sheikh Adnan tells us that words matter a lot, and I think a word like should matters a lot. When I say I should be doing this, it's very different than, I get to do this. It's not I should be swimming. It's I get to do swim. I get to swim. How lucky am I? It's a very different posture. So the first thing I would push back on you is to say, who's telling you that? Rhetorically speaking, who's telling you you should do anything? And maybe wipe that off from your scale and say, perhaps I'm picking the thing that society's telling me, or a sheikh or a mother or a family member is telling me I should be doing. If I sit down with Sheikh Adnan, maybe he'll tell me, you should memorize Quran. I know he wouldn't say that because he's, mashallah, he knows what gets people to move is internal as opposed to external. But many times we sat with a sheikh and you should be doing that. And I go, oh, the sheikh is telling me I should be doing this. Then what do I know? I should be doing that. And you're not going to go very far with this unless it comes from you. Even if somebody gives you that thought and that idea, if you can't generate it from internal, you're not motivated, you're not driven intrinsically. It's extrinsic motivation. That's not going to get you very far. So to answer your question, I would say push back on yourself and say, why should I do this? That's one. And if your heart's telling you, no, I really want to do this because it's super important for me when I sleep, but I hate doing it, or I hate doing my homework, or I hate studying, or I hate doing X, then perhaps make it easier for you. And we've got a few slides, inshallah, to talk about how do you make something hard easier and easier and easier. Like when I first started swimming, I was telling my sister Reem that it was so painful to do one lap, just to go 1 or 2 laps, because it was hard for me. I wasn't trained to do any of that. Now that's not an issue anymore. So if I started doing 20 laps back then, I would have given up. But there is a way by which you can break it down into something bite-sized, but consistently do it. So I don't know if that answers your question. The second question was habits. How do I know my keystone habit? You have to ask yourself. You got to try. You got to experiment. You think about it rationally and say, I think this will have the most impact, and then try it for a month or try it for a week and see, does it actually make a difference in my life, or am I just as happy or less happy as before? And then iterate. You're not going to find that answer in a textbook. You're going to have to generate yourself. You put on your experimenter lab coat and try until you find what works for you. Does that make sense? So I would love for us to break up into groups for the next few minutes and answer this question. Reflect on what your keystone habits could be and discuss within your group which specific habits you would need to change to improve your life. The operative point here is significantly. Not to say, yeah, you know, I can put on my shoes and go for a walk for 10 minutes a day. If that doesn't improve it significantly, fine, but that's not what we're asking you for here. We're not telling you pick something easy. We're saying, what is the habit that could really have an impact on your life? It could be eating right, it could be exercising, it could be spiritually coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are those things that you think you need to do to significantly improve your life? Does that make sense? Any questions on this before we go off in our groups?
So I'll maybe just help out. So it will differ depending on where you are in your life, how old you are, what background you have, what values you carry, it'll really differ from one person to the other. Some people feel it's the habit that puts you in the right mood. It's the habit that allows you to kind of feel like you're productive that day, which is the whole point of this module. Like it gives you that feeling. And it really differs from one person to the other depending on when and where they are. Some people, if they pray Fajr and Jama'ah, they feel like this day is going to be perfect. If they miss it, they feel lousy all day long, right? And some people, it's about like maybe reading. If they're in a sort of specific profession, did they take the time to actually do their reading? Did they read a journal? Did they work on their research project? Did they, do their tasbihah? Did they revise the page of Quran that they were supposed to do? There are things that make you feel, you just, in your mind, you feel bad if you didn't do them, and they stay there. So that one thing, if you change it, you feel better. You just feel better about yourself in general. Just figure that out. And it'll take a while, as Abu Muhammad kind of pointed out. It's going to take a while. It's not going to happen immediately. And you'll try out until you figure out what works. I remember when I was younger, it was my revision. If I didn't do my daily juz'ah, it was a disaster for me personally. Internally, I hated myself for not doing it. Because I wanted to do it. I knew that, this was going to really help me. And alhamdulillah, I was able to figure out with help how to keep doing it and then turn it into 2 and 3, and then it becomes easy. But you have to figure out really what it is that affects you a lot in terms of the habits. So if we can turn into small groups, inshallah, the sisters at the end and the brothers, just like we do we've been doing for the last maybe 4 months now, and small groups, and just kind of go over the topic, share what you feel like. It doesn't have to be a huge group. It can be a group of 3 or 4. You can just break off. It's up to you. This is not something that you have to, we're not going to enumerate groups. It's up to you how you want to break down. Just chat about this for a little bit. It's always helpful to hear what other people have to say, because you may find yourself a little bit maybe bashful initially to talk about it.
Perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay, maybe 1 more minute and then we wrap up, inshallah. Just take 60 seconds. طيب, السلام عليكم. جزاكم الله khairan. I can feel the energy in the room. That's wonderful. Keep it, because we now want volunteers to raise their hands and share with us whether it's something that you yourself came up with or a few of what you guys came up with as a group. So I'll ask them. Yeah, there you go. So brothers, go ahead.
Okay, so we talked about our.
And if we can just bring that energy focused and that ihsan to our best so we can listen to Malik, inshallah.
So we all agreed that this was a pretty difficult question, just off the top, hearing it for the first time, understanding this concept of keystone habits. It's hard to think about the one thing that is the keystone habit in your life. We discussed some of our own personal, miscomings, talking about how we get distracted, talking about how sometimes we're too tired to accomplish things, all stuff like that. And we tried to choose our keystone habits based on those things that sort of drag us down sometimes. So some of us mentioned waking up early and sleeping early is something that helps us accomplish things in our day. Like one of us mentioned that getting up late to them, just their day is ruined at that point, because they feel like even though they can accomplish the same amount of things in the same amount of time, it's shifted to them that in their brain it doesn't help them personally. I mentioned personally taking a nap, a short nap every day, 15, 20 minutes. For me personally, I need that to continue my day, because I just get overtired and stuff like that. So yeah, and we also mentioned cutting down our phone time, our screen time. One of us mentioned that their friend actually put a screen time lock for them to which they don't know the password, and that helps them get through their day. So that hour of screen time every day is their sort of their break, sort of their, where they get like their happiness, their fun for that day, and then the rest is productive and trying to get stuff done, inshallah.
Beautiful, excellent. Thank you for that. Very well said. Sisters in the back. Good.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So we basically discussed the same thing. Just being productive, getting something done that day kind of like changes the trajectory of the entire day. Like feeling like you have a purpose that day by finishing schoolwork or, even cleaning. We talked as well. A lot of us feel like we need at least like a 15-minute nap in the day to get going. I need to walk or go outside even for 5-10 minutes. Literally being in nature is so important. Yeah, that's kind of all we kind of discussed.
Perfect, excellent.
Jazakallah.
Very well said. Jazakumullah khair. Brothers?
Well, what we talked about is that we really should be trying to do some things that we are not very often doing. Some of us are not talking to our families very often, and some of us are very in need of exercise, especially when they're always looking down on their phone or doing homework. Just to get something different out and affect you in a way to benefit yourself. It may not be easy, but it definitely needs to. I feel we should be trying something.
Okay, careful of that word should, but I know where you're going with that. Thank you. Sisters in the back.
I'm embarrassed to tell. These
No,
ladies
no,
have
no,
put me to this.
It's a loving, carefree, judgment-free zone, so just go ahead and share.
My days are very exciting.
Okay,
When I wake up, I have just like a, I don't know, like a shot of energy.
mashallah.
And I wouldn't want to change that, like to do. But there are things that,
Okay, excellent.
but my days are great. I don't want to change my days.
Beautiful.
They're perfect.
Beautiful. And it's not really about changing the day, it's about making the day that much more awesome. So if you're starting from a high base, that's beautiful. Can you make it even more awesome by adding things? And perhaps you're doing what you need to be doing, but is there room for you to do things that will make your day that much better? Would be one way to think about the question. But thank you for sharing.
If, like I said, like I want to bring more learning, Quran learning, tadabbur, and tazkiyah, these Alhamdulillah.
Naam. Jazakumullah khair. Excellent. طيب, brothers here, I think, if you have the mic, yes?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi
Um,
wa barakatuh.
So we said a few things. Most of them were about physical activity. We mentioned sleeping earlier, waking up earlier. One of the brothers mentioned playing basketball really helps him connect with like his team. It makes him feel like a part of, I don't know, just connecting with other people. I said the same thing. Actually, connecting with family is something big that helps me. A couple of the brothers mentioned walking in the morning helps them out. And also reading Quran daily. And those were the main ones we talked about.
Excellent. Jazakumullah khair. Sisters.
So we talked about element that we share, which is being active, like working out, whatever. And we thought that maybe if we try to do something together, we could maybe be better, more consistent with doing that. It also helps for me to remember, like, working out it's hard for me to get out of the house and go do that, but it helps me to remember my motivation for doing that. So I keep reminding myself that I want to be able to be super active with my kids and like play with them and act like, physically engage with them at their level. So that kind of just keeps bringing me back and making me serious about it. The other thing for me is reading every day. And I think that's the one that I'll start with just because it's the most easily accessible one. I know I get 15 minutes every night and I can read. So I think it's easier to start off with something like that. And I know once I start that, it'll be easier for me to read a lot because I used to, like, for you back in the day. But for me, it was reading. And then it just in recent years, I've really let go of that. So I know if I start, I'll be able to.
Perfect. Perfect. Jazakallah khair. And we'll talk about a few tips in terms of how to make things easy. The one thing that jumped at me is, it could be super motivating when you're doing something together. That's why perhaps we pray in Jama'ah, because it's a lot easier, paradoxically, to pray in Jama'ah than to pray on your own. One thing at the same time to keep in mind is that makes it also harder to accomplish, because when you're getting all your sisters together at 6 o'clock to go for a run or a walk every single day, that may be harder to schedule it wise than if it was on your own. So we'll talk about strategies to make things simple, but I do agree that it does help the motivation when you're doing it as a group. Thank you for that. Shabab, who's doing?
Assalamu alaikum. I think the main idea our group came up with was mostly sleeping early, waking up early, because somebody said they also hate that when they procrastinate, it slows them down, and it really it annoys them. It doesn't let them continue freely with their day and just do what they want to do.
No.
So for me personally, when I wake up, automatically, when I wake up late, automatically I start procrastinating. Also, another person said that they wake up at Fajr and then they stay up until Shuruq, and that really like motivates them and keeps them going for the rest of the day.
No. Allah Jazakallah
Yeah.
khair. I love what he said, where, if I wake up late, it just throws the whole day off. And it doesn't take you one step back, it takes you 10 steps back. Why? Because you're in a bad mood and you still have a full day ahead of you of doing things, but you're doing every single thing with lack of ihsan because you already started on a bad footing. So at the end of the day, it's -10, not -1. You're paying for that price throughout the day. It compounds into something much worse. And if you do something good, if you get up and do your run or walk in the morning, or you sit between Fajr and Shuruq, some people will say, oh, that's 40 minutes of wasted time. But it actually has boosted your battery. So you're running through the day, A, much happier, B, much more productive. So instead of taking an hour to study that piece of paper or what have you, it took you 35 minutes. So you're saving all these times because you started the day on a wonderful footing. Thank you for mentioning that. Sisters?
Alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
We talked a little bit about implementing haya into our life, and just because like you might wear the hijab, it doesn't mean you're, a person who implements act, and that goes for men and women.
No.
That's something I personally would like to work on. When I apply it throughout my day, I feel a lot more dedicated to my deen, especially when you have the proper intention.
No, beautiful. Things that we do don't need to take more time. Haya is one of those great examples where you're there anyway, and you can either act with haya or without haya. And it's not going to take you more time to do that, but you'll feel so much better afterwards when you do it with haya, as you mentioned. Thank you. Sisters, I think the guys are all done, so sisters.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So we kind of spoke of it more in an aspect of like being a student and having all these responsibilities and trying to manage everything at the same time.
No.
And I feel like that it's very easy to get distracted and off task with things sometimes. So for me personally, like waking up and starting my day off with Fajr and doing Qiyam al-Layl, I feel like I can take time aside and like set the goals that I want through the day.
No.
That way I have like, okay, today I need to do this and that. And then that way, if I do have time, I'll go to the smaller tasks. But I feel like waking up and starting your day fresh just gives you that like clear and concise, like I have this goal today. And this is what I want to accomplish. But
We're being sabotaged by Sheikh Adnan, but that's fine. That's good.
yeah, so I just feel like, I mean, being a student is not exactly easy, but just like many other people like have different lives. But having those goals, I feel like, kind of just gives you like, I want to do this and that. So just more concise.
No, excellent. Yes, absolutely.
Something we talked about that keeps us motivated was definitely coming here. We look forward to it. We plan it throughout our day. We need to get this much studying done so that we can come watch this halqa. And then like throughout the week, we like plan our day throughout like the weekend so that like it gets us ready through the day and through the week. And yeah, so
Very
coming
well
here
said.
for sure.
Thank you for that. Sisters in the back or on the side?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So we mentioned waking up early. We mentioned praying sunnah. We also mentioned getting my wird of the day.
No.
We also, I mean, my mom forced me to say this, but it's spending more time with your parents. No, I'm just joking.
That's a should one.
Might be. Also controlling phone use. We also said reading Quran and making a lot of dua.
No.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Jazakallah khair. And one more group perhaps on the side.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We actually, I think the running theme between all of us was the need to connect with the right people. So be that family, be that friends, be that this space here at the Wellness Network. Being able to start the day off right. So either sleeping on time and not looking at your phone, or working out or reading Quran or any combination of those things. And then a few of us focused in on planning. So if you have a plan and you manage to execute the plan, then you're good to go. You've had a good day. So I think for some of us, it was actually beginning on a high note, and for some of us, it was actually ending on a high note.
No, excellent. Very, very well said by everybody. And a few things to keep in mind. Everybody that said something and that shared something today is not magnificent. As you can, it's not very, very difficult to do. I think we can all agree that whether we put our shoes on and go for a walk is really within our control at the end of the day. You can argue Palestine and what's happening there, or the atrocities that are happening around the world. I can't really control myself. That's outside of my area of control. We could debate that till tomorrow morning, but nobody can convince me is whether I put my shoes on and go for a walk, or when I choose to put my head on the pillow and go to sleep, or when I turn my phone off and choose not to use it, is controlled by somebody else. Nobody can convince me of that. It's my decision whether I turn on the phone or scroll on Instagram. Not to shame ourselves, not to say, you should not do that. It's up to you. You do whatever you want. You feel like scrolling forever, go ahead and do that. And if it makes you a better person, excellent, wonderful. That's the goal. But it's within your control. Nobody else is controlling you. That's the first point. The second point is ask yourself, rhetorically, what is stopping me? If I'm saying that when I go to sleep, I have an amazing day the next day, perfect. If I sit there between Salah, Fajr, and Shuruq, I have a wonderful day, excellent. If I take a 15-minute nap, my day is different, wonderful. What is stopping you from doing that? Really, don't justify to me. You don't care about me. You don't care about me. You care about yourself. Ask yourself, what is getting in the way? And most of the time, if we're honest with ourselves, the thing getting in the way is we don't want it bad enough. We don't want it bad enough. Technically, it sounds great when I do these things. And I know I feel great the next day, but short-term gratification gets in the way. What is short-term gratification? It's amazing when I scroll on Instagram or Netflix or whatever we do. It's nice that we've been programmed and pickled to like that short-term buzz. We know next day I'm going to pay the price, but that's next day, that's tomorrow, that's next week. I have an essay due in a month from now, that's a month from now. So what do? I get pleasure today as opposed to the pleasure of finishing something on time or ahead of time. Just things for us to think about. So I want to share a few things before we go to Salah, and time is just flying, and Sheikh Adnan was correct. When he looked at my slides, he goes, you need a week to cover all this. So you were right, I was wrong. And if you can hit next on the, no, never. Or if you can just hit next, Ali, for me, to the next slide, if you don't mind. And I'll share with you, I wanted to share three things before we end. Is now, you have homework when you leave, and your homework is what is it that I want to install? What is important in my life for me to start installing? Now, once you get that, don't get it perfectly. It could change. This is the first attempt at it. It's going to sleep early, taking a nap, whatever that habit you want to install. Then how do you do it? You do that by making it a daily task. Trust me, it's a whole lot easier to install it in your life if it's every single day rather than, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and every other Sunday. That's going to be much, much harder for you to install. But pick something that you can do every single day. Now, when you do that, there is a 100% commitment. Whoa, that's really hard. I can't go and swim 6 kilometers in the pool every single day. I can't do that. It makes me feel amazing when I do it, but I can't do that every day. I can't go to sleep at 8 o'clock every night. I can't. Maybe certain nights I can, but I can't do that every night. So how is Khalid asking me for a 100% commitment? You already start by saying, I will not move off of this. It's like Ramadan. Do we question ourselves in Ramadan? Am I going to fast this morning or not fast this morning? I fasted a week already. Can I just take a break today and then I'll continue next week. You never think like that because it's 100% commitment. It's a lot easier when it's 100% commitment to yourself. But when that's the case, you got to make it super, super, super easy. Super easy. To the point where you never skip. That's the whole idea behind 100% commitment. You perform it even when you don't feel like performing it. That's the whole idea. Certain days, like today, you're going to go home and journal on it, wake up in the morning and do it. But what happens 4 days from now when Sheikh Adnan's not here lecturing us about how amazing it would be to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? When your iman dips, what do you do then? You're not going to feel like doing it. So pick something super easy on the days that you won't feel like doing it, that you could still do it. So when we're talking about sleeping early, in that example, you sleep at what, 11 o'clock at night, because from 9 to 11 you're on Netflix. No problem, love it. Can you sleep 5 minutes earlier? Can you make a commitment that you're going to turn off your phone 5 minutes before you go to bed? Instead of it being the last thing you look at before you go to sleep, just 5 minutes before, you're going to turn off the phone. Can you commit to that? Too much? 1 minute. 1 minute. Just 1 minute, then go to sleep. Shaitan's going to laugh at you and say, what are you doing? What's this 1 minute going to do? Don't worry about that. Commit to that something small, but it's 100% commitment, even if you don't feel like doing it. And what happens when you do skip? You know, that one day, that one night, you committed to putting your phone off five minutes before going to sleep, and you skipped it. Or you were going to walk, but you skipped it. Or you were going to memorize something, but you skipped that day. The following day, and this is going to happen. Why is this going to happen? Although I said 100% commitment, this is going to happen because you're human. You're a human being. You will make mistakes. You are not perfect. I have not met one perfect person yet, but if you do come across them, I'd love to meet them. I'll take a selfie with them because it'll be really special. I've never met a person like that who's perfect. So when you slip, don't beat yourself up. Don't call yourself names. Treat yourself like you treat a friend. Speak to yourself in that manner. And then when you skip a day, the next day, the number one priority is to do that task. If I take a nap, then get up. Number one priority for that day is that you're going to take a nap. Even if it means silly enough that I got up at 6, at 9 in the morning, I'm going to take a nap. I don't need a nap, but I really need to get my nap in. That way I say I committed to my habit. And never, never skip 2 days. The moment you skip 2 days in a row and say, I'll make it up, you got to reset because that habit is gone. You had a streak, and the streak could have been a week or 2 or 3. You missed a day, you have a 50% chance of coming on board. If you miss 2 days, you're basically starting from scratch. So I want you guys to think about this for next week. We had a whole lot more material. I'm sorry, I apologize for being so kind of slow at this. But inshallah, we'll pick it up from here next week as we continue the discussion of habits. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.